Last time we looked at the deadliest civilian job in American history, the brakeman of the 1800s, the Lincoln pin coupler, the handbrake on top of a moving freight car. Most viewers assume that job was eliminated by safety legislation in the 1890s. Most viewers were wrong. The job did not disappear, it evolved, and it is still considered one of the most dangerous occupations in America. Every year, the Federal Railroad Administration publishes a detailed report on railroad worker fatalities. The numbers are far smaller than they were in the Lincoln pin era, but they are not zero. And the same category of work that killed brakemen in 1890 still produces the largest share of railroad worker fatalities today: switching operations. The setting has changed, the equipment has changed, the procedures have changed. The fundamental physics has not. A human body interacting with multi-ton rail equipment will always be at risk of being crushed by it. The only question is how often. Before we look at how modern railroad workers get killed, we need to understand the environment they work in. A classification yard is where freight trains are taken apart and rebuilt. Cars arrive on incoming trains from one part of the country, get sorted by destination, and get assembled into new outgoing trains heading to different parts of the country. A typical Class 1 classification yard handles thousands of cars every day. Cars from a single incoming train might end up on 20 different outgoing trains. The sorting process is complex, continuous, and unforgiving. The largest classification yards use a system called a hump yard. Cars are pushed slowly up an artificial hill, the hump uncoupled at the crest, and allowed to roll down the other side under gravity. At the bottom of the hump, an automated switching system routes each car onto the correct outgoing track based on its destination. Devices called retarders, essentially track-mounted brakes, slow each car to a controlled coupling speed before it joins the outgoing consist. Smaller yards use flat switching. Locomotives manually shove cuts of cars onto sorting tracks. A switchman or conductor on the ground rides the cars or walks alongside, controlling the switches and uncoupling cars at the right moment. Both systems require human workers on the ground. In hump yards, workers prepare cars at the crest, ride cars down the hump on occasion, and handle problems when the automated systems fail. In flat yards, workers are on the ground for nearly every move. The work is physical. It is exposed. It happens in any weather, at any hour, in environments where multiple cuts of cars may be moving at the same time on adjacent tracks. The modern conductor and switchman do work that would be familiar to a brakeman of 1890. Different equipment, same fundamental tasks, coupling and uncoupling cars by hand. Yes, this is still done. The automatic knuckle coupler eliminated the need to stand between cars during the actual coupling moment, but the cars still need to be prepared. The knuckle has to be opened by hand before a coupling. The air hoses have to be connected after a coupling. The cut lever has to be pulled to uncouple. All of these are manual operations done at ground level. Riding the side of moving rail cars. This is still done routinely. A switchman will often catch a moving car as it rolls slowly into a sorting track, ride the side of it for several car lengths, and operate the handbrake from the moving position. The procedure is regulated and controlled, but it is still being performed by a human body holding onto a moving piece of multi-ton equipment. Walking ballast in active rail yards. The ground between yard tracks is loose crushed stone. It is uneven, sloped, and unstable. Workers walk it constantly, between cars, around cuts of cars, across switch areas, often carrying tools or radios, often in low light, often while monitoring multiple moving consists at the same time. And in the past 2 decades, a new role has emerged: the remote control operator. A switchman wearing a control belt who actually drives the locomotive directly during switching moves, often while standing on the ground beside the engine. Remote control locomotives have eliminated some of the most dangerous procedures from the brakeman era, but they have introduced their own risks. The operator is now driving a locomotive while also walking ballast, also monitoring his surroundings, also maintaining radio contact with other crew members. Distraction is the enemy. The work is more automated than it was 100 years ago. The work is still done by human bodies in the same fundamental environment. This sounds dangerous, but it is also routine. Tens of thousands of railroad workers do this every day without incident. So how do they get killed? The Federal Railroad Administration tracks every railroad worker fatality in detail. The causes cluster into a small number of repeatable patterns. The leading cause of death is being struck by rail equipment. A worker's on a track, A locomotive or cut of cars approaches. The worker does not see it, does not hear it, or does not move clear in time. This is harder to avoid than it sounds. Modern locomotives are quieter than older ones. Yard moves often happen at low speed, which means less audible warning. Visibility is frequently poor, and a switchman focused on one task may not register a hazard approaching from a different direction. The most common struck by fatality involves a worker on or near a track who is hit by equipment moving on that same track. Often it is the worker's own consist, the locomotive making a move that the worker thought he had finished. The second category is falls from moving cars during riding moves. The same hazard that killed Brakeman in 1890 still kills switchmen in 2025. The frequency is far lower because riding moves are more regulated and less common. The physics is identical. A worker loses his grip, falls, and the cars behind him do the rest. The third category is being caught between cars during coupling operations. The automatic knuckle coupler eliminated the need to be between cars at the moment of coupling, but workers still position themselves between cars to connect air hoses, adjust knuckles, or handle problems. If a car moves unexpectedly during one of these procedures, the worker can be crushed. The fourth category is unique to the modern era: remote control locomotive incidents. A worker is walking the ballast and steps in front of a locomotive he himself is operating because his attention is on a different task. The locomotive responds to a command he sent moments earlier. He is in the wrong place when it does. Federal Railroad Administration reports specifically flag RCO operations as a high-risk procedure that requires constant situational awareness. The technology that was supposed to make the work safer has created new failure modes that did not exist before. The common thread across every fatality category is almost always the same: a moment of distraction, a misread signal, an assumption that turned out to be wrong. In an environment that does not forgive any of those things, modern railroad workers are well-trained, well-equipped, and operating under safety rules that brakemen of the 1800s could not have imagined. The fatality rate has collapsed compared to the Lincoln Pin era, but the rate is not zero, and the deaths that do occur are not random. They are the predictable result of human attention failing in an environment that demands constant vigilance. A modern conductor or switchman works under conditions that would have been unrecognizable to a brakeman of 1890. High visibility reflective clothing, steel-toed boots, eye protection, hearing protection, hard hats, personal protective equipment that did not exist a century ago. Two-way radio communication between every member of a crew. Constant verbal updates on movements, locations, and intentions. Every move is announced. Every hazard is called out. Mandatory pre-shift safety briefings. Documented operating procedures for every standard task. Federal regulations governing every aspect of yard operations. Mandatory rest periods between shifts. The automatic knuckle coupler that eliminated the Lincoln Pin in 1893 is still standard equipment. The Westinghouse air brake is still standard equipment. The two technologies that ended the worst of the brakeman era are still doing their job 130 years later. Positive train control. Operational since the late 20-teens on most American main lines. The system monitors locomotive position and speed continuously and applies brakes automatically if a hazard is detected. PTC was not designed primarily for yard safety, but the underlying philosophy, automation backstopping human attention, has influenced every aspect of modern railroad safety. The result of all this is a railroad worker fatality rate roughly 2 orders of magnitude lower than the rate of 1893. American railroading has gone from one of the most dangerous occupations in the country to a job with safety statistics comparable to other industrial workplaces. But the work is still done by human bodies in physical contact with massive moving equipment. The technology has reduced the frequency of dangerous interactions. It has not eliminated them, until full automation replaces ground crews entirely, which is still years away if it happens at all. There will continue to be conductors and switchmen walking ballast in the dark, and some of them will continue to be killed. The brakeman of 1890 and the switchman of 2025 are the same person, different equipment, different protections, different statistical likelihood of injury, but the fundamental work is identical: a human body interfacing with rail equipment that cannot stop in time if something goes wrong. The automatic knuckle coupler eliminated the worst hazard of 1890, but the worker still has to step between cars to connect the air hoses. The worker is still vulnerable in that moment. The frequency of injury is lower. The geometry of the danger is unchanged. The handbrake walks of 1890 are gone, but riding the side of a moving car is still procedure. The fall hazard is reduced. It is not eliminated. Every classification yard in North America runs on the same principle it ran on in 1890. Cars are pushed by locomotives. Workers on the ground guide the moves. The cars couple together by their own momentum. The work is physical, exposed, and continuous. The romance of railroading and the danger of it have always been the same thing. The size of the equipment, the continuous motion, the need for human judgment in environments full of multi-ton machinery. The brakeman fell from the top of a moving boxcar in 1890. The switchman steps in front of his own locomotive in 2025. The job has changed. The job has not changed. The Federal Railroad Administration will publish another annual safety report next year. There will be fewer fatalities than the year before. There will not be zero. From the brakeman of 1890 to the switchman of today, this job has killed thousands of people. The death toll has dropped by orders of magnitude. The work itself has changed less than you might think. If you have not watched Part 1, the story of the original brakeman, the Lincoln pin coupler, and the legislation that ended the worst of it, that link is in the description. The two videos tell one story. The next time you sit at a crossing, watch the worker walking the side of the train. They are doing one of the most dangerous jobs in America. Almost nobody talks about it. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. There is more about the people behind the railroad than most viewers will ever know.